Tracy's here.
Hello.
Hello. All right. Well, it's 3:46, so I guess we can go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar this afternoon entitled Seesaw. We're really excited to have you here. I'm going to go. My name is Nikki Bradenberg, and I am a technology coach and community educator with Montana PBS. And with me today is, I'll let you introduce yourself, Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Piltz, and I am Technology Integration Specialist with Billings Public Schools. I taught kindergarten for several years, and now I mostly work with K-2 teachers, helping them integrate technology into their classrooms.
Great. Tracy and I met, I don't know, was it 4 or 5 years ago? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We were both teaching kindergarten at the time, and we met on Twitter in our weekly state chat, Montana Ed Chat. And we were both using iPads with kindergartners to do blogging using a different platform. And we just started collaborating and sharing ideas. And now it's kind of cool because now we're both in this tech coach position, helping other teachers to do the same thing. So when it was time to get started with using Seesaw with teachers, I called on Tracy to help me because she is a resident expert. Tracy is a Seesaw ambassador. And Tracy, I'm going to let you explain what that is a little bit while I go back out of this screen and hit the record button if you want to.
Sounds good. So yes, our Nikki might have already said our disclaimer is this is our first time trying this, so it might be a little bit I don't know, clunky. So we're glad that you're joining us in this little experiment for this first webinar that we're doing, with her being in Bozeman and I'm in Billings, so we're not right here together and trying to coordinate everything. So we're hoping that it will go well. And I was in one room and had to switch rooms really fast because they were having a meeting in the room I was all set up in. So anyway, we're learning as we go. But yes, so I started using Seesaw. I actually heard about Seesaw from Nikki because I was using a tool called KidBlog in my classroom. And when I went to show that to some other teachers, it just had changed its format a lot. And I didn't love it as much. And I reached out to Nikki because we had made a connection and asked if she had tried any new tools for making digital portfolios. And she had said, you know, I've heard about Seesaw, I don't really know much about it. And that's when I kind of started using it in classrooms and just found it to be such an amazing tool for keeping that digital portfolio, for communicating with parents, just so many different things. So I joined the Seesaw Ambassador program, which any teachers can join. It's a great program where you have access to a online community of other ambassadors, which I really enjoy, just for sharing ideas or asking questions, that kind of thing. You know, really no other crazy perks or anything like that. Seesaw doesn't fly me anywhere in a private jet, unfortunately. Not yet. I'm waiting for it. But it is really nice having a little bit of a connection with the online community, and being able to share ideas and get ideas from other ambassadors is really pretty phenomenal. So yeah, that's kind of what, and any teachers, you know, once you're comfortable with Seesaw, anyone is welcome to apply to be an ambassador. And again, it just continues to grow that community with lots of ideas and resources and that kind of thing. So it's a pretty cool thing.
Cool. So our agenda for today is, this is really meant for people who are just getting started with Seesaw. If you consider yourself an expert, we hope you'll get something out of it too. But we really, the idea for this webinar came from the teachers that I work with a lot of them are just getting Seesaw going, and I helped them get their account set up and get their kids' first posts up. But there was still more to learn, and so I was just hoping to offer some ongoing support for those teachers. So we're going to do an overview of the tool, how it works, show you the icons and things like that so that it becomes familiar. We are going to get some hands-on practice actually using Seesaw, and so you'll actually need to open another tab on your screen, and we'll give you an opportunity to post something to Seesaw so you can experience it from the student perspective, which is always useful. Then we both have some ideas for implementation and some resources to explore. This slide deck is available to you, and you can get to it with this web link that I've shared right here. I will also share it with everybody at the end of the webinar because I have everyone's email addresses. And so you can use this slide deck and the links that we have embedded in each slide for future use. We have a person, you can see her there, her name is Chris Seifert, and she's here at Montana PBS with me, and she's going to be running the chat box. So if you have questions for Tracy and I while we're talking, go ahead and just type them into the chat box, and Chris will either answer them directly or she'll bring them to me so Tracy and I can bring them up. So if we talk about something and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I don't even know what that means, or how would that even work in my classroom? Just go ahead and pop it in there, and we'll also have some time at the end of the webinar for you to put some questions in the chat box, or since we've got a small enough group, you could definitely speak into your microphone, and we can have some discussion there as well. So I'm gonna actually stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Tracy, and she's gonna take the next few slides.
Okay. Let's see. Did that work?
Yes.
Okay. I'm never sure. All right. So we're just going to chat a little bit about why Seesaw. As I mentioned before, Seesaw is a digital portfolio tool. So it's a really excellent place to collect students' work. And what I think is really important here is it's collecting both the digital and physical work. And I'll be honest, I started using it because I mostly wanted a place to keep the digital items that they were creating. We had iPads in my kindergarten classroom, and I felt like if I was having them create things on iPads, it wasn't going anywhere. It was just sitting on the iPad, and I felt like we needed a place to put that. But a real bonus has been also keeping artifacts of that physical work, which I think is pretty phenomenal. So whether it's building things with manipulatives or they did something on paper and take a picture of it and tell about it, I think that that's a huge, huge benefit of using this portfolio. So everything is organized. We'll talk a little bit about assessments and conferences, but being organized in that way is going to make those types of things easier and more efficient for you. It also gives each student a space that's kind of theirs. What I really liked about Seesaw when I looked at it and compared it to other digital portfolio tools is the built-in tools that it has. So it really is a perfect place for students and teachers to start if they're not sure where to begin with some of this technology integration, because there's just so much embedded right into Seesaw to help students capture that learning, reflect, develop some new skills and that type of thing. And then that parent communication is huge. To be able to share and give parents that little peek into your classroom is really, really a big part of why a lot of teachers are using Seesaw. When I go into these next slides, it just sort of talks specifically about some of these sort of top things that when you ask teachers why they use Seesaw, what they love about it. That student empowerment so that they're documenting learning as it happens. I find it so powerful when I go into classrooms and I don't have to say to students, okay, now take a picture and put this in your journal. They know that they just did something special that they want to keep and they want to share. And so they're documenting that. I found, with their writing skills, critical thinking skills, being able to reflect on their work, doing that in Seesaw is really motivating for them. So a lot of teachers will say, gosh, I really notice my kids want to write when we put it into Seesaw, because they like publishing it and having that audience. When we say those 21st century skills, thinking about digital literacy, internet safety, being good digital citizens, all of those types of skills to be able to practice in a forum like Seesaw, where we know that it's moderated by a teacher, we know that it's safe. So if they make some of those mistakes, we can help them make better, smarter choices in the future. So I think this is a smart place to do that. And then these other slides here, just things that teachers love about Seesaw, that community of learners, when you have students sharing their work with one another so that they can have that authentic audience, start to comment and provide feedback on one another's work, and then involving families in that same process. That's really, really powerful community builder for your classroom. Again, that organization, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the ways you can use folders and different things like that in Seesaw, but just to be a little bit more organized. And then the assessments, conferences, even sharing out newsletters on Seesaw really can be so incredibly helpful, a time saver for teachers. So let's see. So I think we were going to do an activity now in Seesaw. Okay, and I was just going to say, so Nikki put a class code in here. So we do want you to play around a little bit in Seesaw as a student. Have all of you created a teacher account for Seesaw? You can turn your microphone on or nod. Yes, okay. So what will happen is we want you to sign into Seesaw now as a student to play. If you just go log into Seesaw, it's going to automatically log you into your teacher account. So you'll have to log out of your teacher account and then log back in as a student. Does that make sense? Sorry, I just stopped my sharing, I think, which is okay. Because I think we'll need to see your class anyway, Nikki.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Come up here. So you're going to go to seesaw.me, and you're going to enter this text code, which actually has changed from what was on the slide. So Tracy warned me about that. So if you, and the instructions are right here. So you open the Seesaw app or go to the website, which is app.seesaw.me. Choose I'm a student, even though we know you're a teacher, but go ahead and just pretend to be a student for this. And then enter this text code into the box. And then once you're signed in, Tracy, what were we going to have them do?
We're going to just do a quick little introduction. So what we want you to do once you're signed in as a student, sorry, I'm trying to get signed in too so that we can see each other there. But we're going to have you use the camera tool inside of Seesaw to take a picture of yourself. So you'll take a little selfie. And then you can use the label tool or the drawing tools just to add a little bit of information about yourself. So you might want to write your name, what you teach, maybe where you teach. And then there's a drawing tool in there, so you could even add just a few little fun details. So really, we just want you to kind of play around with those different tools. So adding the picture and then playing with those different annotation tools in Seesaw. When you're done, just be sure that you click the check mark. I tell students it's kind of the next or the go on button. If they don't check that check mark, Seesaw doesn't save their work anywhere. So if they don't check it and kind of send it to the teacher to approve, it gets deleted. So just be sure after you play around and do your introduction, do that check mark and submit it. And then if we're all in as students, if Nikki approves the work that we post, then we'll be able to see each other's introductions.
And if you'll give me a thumbs up that you are logged in, then I can get rid of the student code thing, and then you can see the live of what's happening on my screen. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of this and just refresh this screen here. And then you should see what's happening. So this is my feed, and this is just a demo account, obviously, because I don't have a classroom. So I just mostly just use this to show the tools to teachers. And as things come up, I'm going to get a little notice to approve things as you start submitting things.
Nikki, can you just tell me the code and I'll log in as a student?
Yeah. Well, I'll bring it up again.
Okay.
Can you do that one?
I tried to remember it, but it'll probably
It's
be
changed again. It's capital HUSRQU. So the reason it changes is because Seesaw is really important about privacy. And so if you were to have this in your classroom and someone were to walk by and snap a picture and throw it up on social media, a stranger or someone outside of your school environment would not be able to hack in and see your Seesaw. And so that's one of the big reasons that this changes. Okay, I'm not seeing any posts coming up to approve yet.
If you have questions as you're working, just turn your microphone on and just ask if you can't find any of the tools.
Oh, I see if you can see down there, I've got 2 approved, unapproved posts, the red bar at the bottom. So I'm just going to go to review. And then I'm going to approve this one. I'll approve this one. I'll approve this one. And then I've approved everything. So now to go back to my feed, I can go right here to journal. And as you're working, they'll come in. So we've got Tracy's there first. And then we've got Darcy from Fargo, North Dakota. There's Julie over in Three Forks. And this was a post from a little guy in Amsterdam from earlier this week. It's a good student work example. My inbox you see here, I've got 2 on there, so I can click on there. And there are my notices saying that all these people have added an item. So here's how I can kind of track what people are doing. Go back to the journal. We'll wait and see if anybody else wants to post anything. I guess we should have given you the directive. I've got demo users set up, so most of you figured out to just choose a demo user number and to post that. In that case, your kids would have names assigned to them. And even the kindergartners are able to find their names and touch that little box next to their names. So that works out pretty well. And there's Terry. There we go. We'll approve that one and head back over to our journal. Looks good.
I really think disability students have to take a picture of their work and then add the annotation to it using either the text labels or the pen tool. I think that's really powerful, and it's an easy place too for a lot of teachers and students to start if you're not sure exactly where to start. Things that you're already doing, the students can be taking pictures of, but then adding that extra layer by telling about it with the the pen tool or the labels or using the microphone and telling about it. So I think it's just such a good entry point, is just using that camera tool that's so simple for them to figure out, but just such a great way for them to document what they're doing and learning.
Mhm. And I'll add too, so you can look here at the bottom of these posts, you've got some options. So similar to any social media feed, we can like something, we can comment on something, we can type comments, or we can actually do voice recorded comments, which is really exciting. And it can actually be the person's voice. It's not Siri reading the comment. It's a beautiful recording of the voice, which is really exciting. Over here, we can add this as a skill, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. We can add this to a folder, because you can set this up in either subject-based folders. We can also post it to a blog, which would mean that people outside of your classroom would be able to see it if that's something that you wanted. All of these are things that'll be in your teacher settings, and you can control. I had a teacher at one of my schools that turned off this liked thing because it was bogging down her notifications. She didn't want to see when the kids were liking things. So that's perfect. That's just a preference. So now you've got a good idea for how Seesaw looks. We'll go back to our, I got one more post to review. You'll see that this is all somebody with their desk. That's awesome. I love teacher desks. Mine always look like that too. My desk at the station looks like that sometimes too. All right, so I'm going to go back to our webinar slides, and I have to find where we were. Okay, so I'm going to hand it back to Tracy, actually, so you can talk about some of the things that you've loved using Seesaw for.
Okay.
I'll stop sharing.
The share screen thing was something we were like, how is this going to work? Okay, so is this me now?
Yes, that's you.
Okay. Okay.
Everybody learns together.
The trick is we have the same thing, so I can't tell if it's yours or mine.
Yeah. We've made it really easy for ourselves.
So just talking a little bit, we each decided we'd kind of pick our top three reasons that we use Seesaw, what we love about Seesaw. So the three that I chose were differentiation, the teacher organization, and parent communication that we talked about, and then students being able to demonstrate their understanding of something. Here in Billings, we're moving toward standards-based grading and proficiency scales for reporting K-5. And that's a big mind shift for some of our teachers to not just be tracking grades, giving a worksheet or assessment, tracking grades. So Seesaw is such a great tool for having students actually show that they know the thing that they're supposed to know. So I'm going to click on this one, and all of these just have links to examples, and I can't quite even remember. We don't have to listen to these right now, but just so that you know that they're here. This one is an example of a second grade student just kind of explaining her understanding of a math concept. And she's pretty hilarious too. So you might want to listen to this on your own time, but I just love how she can kind of do a screencast of her work and explain to the teacher. And the teacher said to me too, gosh, there were things that I thought the kids knew because they turned in a worksheet and they had the right answers. But when they sit and actually explain it and I listen to their thinking, I realize there are pieces or chunks of information that they don't quite understand. And we don't always have the time to, pull each of these students back and have them sit and talk and have those conversations with us. So a tool like this is super powerful for that explanation. The teacher organization and parent communication, I think I linked to something. This is not
spreadsheets.
This is not what I was thinking, but great communication. I'll find a better example. of that than my spreadsheet trying to organize Arrowhead's tech time. But I really like Nikki kind of touched on, the folder piece that's in there, so that teachers can be posting items into certain folders. And then when I go to look for something, rather than having to scroll through that whole entire journal feed, if I know that I put it in the math folder, I can click on the math folder and then filter it much more quickly. And the example that I had, it was just perfect because it showed folders and it showed the parent communication piece, because once you do have families connected to this, they can comment on their students' work as well. And so these students can be getting either likes or written or verbal comments from their parents. And the other thing that I like is that you as a teacher can see which parents have actually viewed. So even if they don't click the little like button or leave a comment, you as a teacher still have a little notification at the bottom of a post that says seen by, and it will show you which parents actually viewed. So whether it's a student work post or you posted a note or a newsletter of some sort, I really love that you can see which parents connected to that. And a note about the parent piece as well is that parents only see their child's work. So when a parent does connect to your journal, they're only viewing their own child's work. It's not that they're able to see all of the students in the classwork, and that's important to a lot of people. And then the differentiation piece here. Oh, you guys, like seriously. I think I was having some trouble with the links. But the little arrow that I put here, and hopefully we'll have a few minutes to talk about this, but this new Seesaw activities feature, and that's what this example was supposed to be. But this is a great way to differentiate, because if you use the activities feature, you can tag specific kids for an activity. So if I only wanted Nikki and Chris to get a certain word list, I could tag their names and they would be the only students in my class that saw that list. So it would be an easy way to either send, groups of students different items, or add, extensions to the kids that need it, extra practice for kids that need it, without sending it to the whole class. So the activities and differentiation is really pretty awesome. Okay, I'm going to click off of mine.
I'll show mine. We're going to get really good at this by the time we're done. Webinar pros. So I have a disclaimer with Seesaw for me, and this might be shocking. I've actually never used Seesaw with students of my own. I know. But for me, Tracy and I were blogging, and suddenly the one we were using stopped working and wasn't a great tool anymore. And so I rapidly had to scramble to find something else. And so I started using a tool called Easy Blog, which was very, very similar to Seesaw. And then a week later, I discovered Seesaw. And by then, it was too late to switch. We'd already been posting, already had parents connected. And so I stuck with Easy Blog, and it was an awesome tool, and I really think it does everything Seesaw does. But the reason I recommend Seesaw to the teachers that I'm working with is because it's really a great tool for teachers who have to share devices with other teachers in the school. So if you have an iPad cart or a Chromebook cart and those devices don't live in your room, Seesaw is great because of the sign-in process. Using that QR code to just really quickly scan and go right to your class is so easy. And once you log out, nobody's going to get into your class and post things if they're not a member of your class. And so for me, it was really easy to maybe let go of Easy Blog and put Seesaw out there for teachers. So my examples from my classroom are actually Easy Blog examples. So I don't want to confuse anyone, but they're there just because the same things can be done across the two platforms. So for me, publishing student writing was the biggest reason that we started blogging. Our writing process, we use the Lucy Culkin's Writer's Workshop, and every piece that we wrote from start to finish ended by publishing it on our blog or on something like Seesaw. And really that was the kids using their iPads to take a picture of the actual writing and then using the record tool to record their voices reading that. Going back and looking at those even just a couple months later, it was so obvious to see growth in not only writing, but in speech as well. I was going through some of my daughter's posts from when she was in kindergarten, and I had forgotten she didn't say her R's when she was in kindergarten. And there it was recorded in real time. So one of the posts I have here is from a writing project. I don't know if this isn't my daughter, but this is horse, not horse, horse.
My favorite animal is a horse. Some have horns, some have wings, and some have both. Some have crooked horns that don't exist.
So I'll jump out of that one. I love the word, the exist, right there. It's a beautiful example of where she was in her spelling. So publishing writing was my big thing. If we used it for nothing else, it was to get our writing out there for an authentic audience. And then we would comment on each other's work and give constructive feedback. And that's a whole lesson in itself, is teaching your students how to make valuable comments and then get feedback and comments from other people in our community, not just their parents. The other thing we like to do were class projects like this. So in my class, it was a very hands-on environment, and we were constantly building things like this with blocks and linking cubes, and the kids never wanted to take these things down, right? They were invested in creating these things, and it took time and creativity and collaboration and teamwork. And suddenly when we had a way to take a picture of this, describe the process of making it, and post it to something for someone else to see, they were motivated to go ahead and clean it up and put it away, which was really nice. But then it also, these are the kinds of things we can't show mom and dad about what happens during the day-to-day of the classroom, because we had to pick it up and put it away. And so now mom and dad get a kind of an insider's look into what we're doing in the classroom. And it's also a nice way for me, I'm not here in this process. This is a video that they record of whatever it is that they finished. And I also kind of sneakily get to hear them talking to each other. And I learn so much when I'm not there and record what they were saying when I wasn't there. So this is just, she had built this. I'm not going to play the video because, again, the background noise got really hard to hear. And that was something we learned to manage as well. But in this video, she would just describe what this was. She pointed out the shapes that she used. She pointed out the colors that she used. She described its purpose, how long it took. So many valuable things that came from this 5-year-old describing something that she had created. The other thing I like to do, and as Tracy said, communicating with parents, for me, it was about the day-to-day. You know, most parents are dying to know what their kids are doing when they're not with them for the 6 to 7 hours a day that they're in the classroom. And using a tool like Seesaw gives them that window into what you're doing. So I don't know about your school, but my school often had guest speakers come visit, and the whole school would go and sit and watch the guest speaker. And sometimes it was relevant for my little guys, and sometimes it was not. Sometimes it wasn't something that they could sit through and learn from. And so I knew I had to do something to make it relevant when we were done. And so this is an example of a whole class lesson where we had a guest speaker, a Native American storyteller, and we actually had a teepee erected on the playground, and they had drums. It was a pretty engaging, hands-on experience for the kiddos. I took one iPad to this and just took pictures of it while we were in the event. And then when we got back to the classroom, we went through the pictures as a group and labeled them and made a word bank and sort of summarized what happened and really talked. I could figure out kind of what they heard and what they didn't hear, and I filled in the holes for their understanding. And then using the AirDrop tool on iPads, I was able to quickly drop these pictures onto their individual devices, so each device had them. And then they could use those pictures and create their own posts based on this. So they were able to summarize that experience. In this case, this child used Book Creator, and she did kind of a comic book feel. And then she put them on here and then videoed herself talking about it, which I won't play, but it's kind of neat. She also used the annotation tools. This person, she covered their face because that was a rule that you couldn't have faces on our blog because we had it open for everybody to see. But here, see if I can get a little bit, here was wonderful that she annotated and she labeled, she used her spelling techniques, and she really showed us what she got out of that presentation. And so this was a great way for parents to suddenly have talking points at the end of the day. A kid gets in the car and mom says, "What did you do in school?" And they always go, my daughter always went, "I don't remember." But you could quickly pull up the Seesaw and be like, "What about this? You had a guest speaker. Tell me about this." And it jogs their memory. I had moms and dads of 5th grade boys say, "Oh my goodness, thank you so much for giving me something to start the conversation with at dinner time," because they just, it's like pulling teeth to get them to tell me what they did at school. So this is awesome evidence of what they learned in school. So I'm going to keep moving, I feel like I just talked a lot there. And we're going to go through each of our tools and just describe how you might use them and what they do. So when you first open Seesaw, you're going to see that you have that nice grid, and they've used these really nice little images. And so even kids who aren't readers can use those icons to navigate Seesaw. The first one is this photo tool. This was my absolute favorite because, like I said earlier, we just take pictures of what we're doing. We're just gathering evidence of our day. iPads and tablets make it super easy, but there's some great ways to use the webcam on Chromebooks as well. Take pictures of that work and then annotate over it. Tracy and I were very similar in our teaching styles in that we believed that there was a time to pick the tech up and there was a time to put it down. And when there were times that we could do something on paper or with blocks or with linking cubes and then use the device to take the picture of it, that was a nice mix of both tech and non-tech things. The other one was the drawing tool, and you can see in this example here, this is an example of a student might create pairs or create patterns and then use the drawing tool to circle things and show their thinking. The drawing tool takes that picture taking tool to the next level. So yep, we took a picture, but now we can use the drawing tool or the audio recording tool to explain what this picture means. And my rule with my kiddos when we posted things was, you've got to tell your audience what this is. We can't confuse people by just posting random pictures. We've got to label it somehow. We either add a caption, we add a voice recording, we add pictures, we add drawings. We know that when the principal opens this up because she wants to see our work, she's going to be very confused if it's just a picture of some blocks. So tell her what we did with that. And that's where the drawing tool is great. The video tool is really powerful, especially for examples of like this one up here. This is a circuit set, which this fan moves if they get the circuit correct. So how motivating is it to get it work if then we can also film it happening and share it with our audience in real time. My daughter, who is a budding YouTube star, sets these kinds of things up at home all the time and films this kind of stuff so that she can show it to people later. And this is really a great way for us to teach kids how to be a part of the publishing world and how to create things for an audience. Other teachers use the video tool to have their kids read themselves reading, read their writing, do our little finger plays and puppet shows, a lot of great options for the video tool. Camera upload. And so anything that you have saved to your computer's photo files or to the camera roll on your iPad can be put on Seesaw. So this is an example here at one of the schools where I was working, and the kids were using the green screen and the Do Ink green screen app. This little boy put his picture over into this roller coaster picture. So you can see that it looks like he's on the roller coaster. And so then they created this to go with the story they had written and then posted them onto Seesaw. So it's kind of a neat thing. Once you get Seesaw going, you can use all kinds of other apps and other programs to create things, save them as images, and then post them to Seesaw. for a long time we would create these things and they just lived on the device forever, and we never got to show them to anyone or do anything with them. Or we felt like maybe we needed to print them or something because we went to all the work to make them. We need to do something with them. And that's where Seesaw gives us a place to put all of that stuff. I'm gonna stop sharing and let Tracy start sharing.
Okay. Here we are. All right, so the file upload tool is similar to an upload from the camera roll like Nikki was just talking about, but this is the option you'll see if you're working from your computer or if you're maybe have your kids working from a Chromebook. So anything that they create elsewhere on the computer or on the Chromebook, they could upload and put into their Seesaw journal just with this file upload. They did add a Google Drive integration last spring, and it's pretty slick. One thing about it is it converts everything into a PDF. So anything that they pull out of their Google Drive to upload, or you pull out of your Google Drive to share with students, becomes a PDF, and sometimes that's fine. Other times, if you're sharing a Google document with them, you might be sharing Google Slides that you want them to actually be able to edit. So pulling it in with that Google integration wouldn't work because it would make it a PDF. So you would want to use a different way of doing that, which I'll show you in a second. But it's just important to know that all of those things kids are creating can be shared onto Seesaw. So it really does pair well if they use the Google tools in the classroom. Another way teachers are using this is, again, that parent communication. If you're already creating a newsletter, you already type up a newsletter somewhere, you could upload this into your Seesaw and you could share it out with parents using Seesaw. So that works really pretty well for sharing documents and that kind of thing with parents. Notes is a really basic, they just get on and are able to type, really. So it's a quick way to let them publish some work. Some teachers, and I had an example pulled up here, are using the notes as their way of just communicating with parents. So instead of typing up a separate newsletter, this teacher is just opening up the notes tool in Seesaw, which is super simple to use, and then just typing, here's what's been going on this week, or, here's the things we're doing in math. This is another example of a way that she shares with parents as well. This, I believe, she created in, it looks like Pic Collage to me, but just putting important dates. And then again, she used that file upload to share this out on Seesaw so that parents can see it here from Seesaw. So a really nice way to easily communicate with parents. Links is one of the tools that you'll see on that grid when you open Seesaw. I don't have students use this a lot, but I use it a lot as a teacher to share things with my students. So if I had this really amazing learning video or even a quick little song, we listen to a lot of Jack Hartman and that kind of thing in kindergarten, I could get a link to that video and place it into Seesaw, and then they could listen to that independently or at a center. Sometimes there's a URL I want my students to get to. Here in Billings, we do FastBridge testing, and the students have to type in the URL address to get to FastBridge testing. You could put that link right here into Seesaw, where all they have to do is click it from the Seesaw post, and then it would take them to that URL. And then again, when we were talking about Google Drive, so yesterday I was doing a Google Drawing activity with second grade. I wanted them to be able to get to my template so that they could do the activity, but I wanted them to be able to edit it. So it wouldn't have worked for me to just send them, a PDF or something of that drawing. So I was able to get the share link out of my Google Drive and share it with them on Seesaw, and then they could just click and access that drawing activity right from Seesaw. So lots of different ways that you could use that links feature to get your students or parents information. Those were kind of the main tools that you can use in Seesaw. So we're going to talk a little bit about those icons and then some teacher settings as well. So in the icons, and let me see, I'm just going to open up a Seesaw class here. So when I talk about the student icons, it's, you know, these cute little things over here, and it seems to depend on what grade level you choose. I think maybe it's 4th grade and up. When you enter your students' names, if they're older than 4th grade, it automatically, like in Nikki's class, it had the initials instead of these little emoji icons. In the younger grades, it automatically assigns them these little emoji icons, which are super cute. The little kids really like them. The older they get, they don't necessarily love them as much. They also sometimes get upset if they're like a super cool dude named Jack and he ends up with the magical unicorn emoji. He's not really too happy about that. So this is something you can change. And I'm just clicking on the class settings here on that little wrench tool. And when I go into Manage Students, I could click Super Cool Jack. And right here where it says icon, I could choose a different icon for Jack, or I could even say use photo. And from here, I could use the camera if I wanted to just let the students take a picture so that they had a little picture of themselves as their profile. I could do that. Again, it is private. It's only going to be seen by classmates and teacher and those child's parents. Or another fun idea would be to have them create an avatar somehow. So create a fun cartoon character of some sort, and then they could upload from their computer any little character that they make, and then that can be set as their profile icon. So just so that you know that that's kind of in there, so you're not stuck with the icons that come up over here, because sometimes that can be a problem for students. And I think next what we're going to just talk about a little bit then is the teacher settings. So I'm just going to stay over here in the settings. And Nikki kind of touched on this earlier, but when I click that wrench, I have tons of options here. So a lot of times teachers will email me, can I do this? Can I do that? And the answer is almost always go into your settings, because there's ways to do that. So if even, you know, the name of your class, if you decide you need to change it, all of that can be edited. You can have co-teachers on your class. In the free account, I think you can only have 2 co-teachers, but sometimes this is helpful for teachers working at the same grade level who share students, maybe for a walk to read or something like that. If you invite each other to be a co-teacher on your class, it makes managing that a little bit more easy. I do like, there are some updates here, being able to change the class theme and the icon. And I pulled up this teacher here. This is Mrs. Teason. She'll be thrilled that I'm showing you her picture. But I do it's really smart that in the same way I just showed you, she changed her class icon to her picture. She's working at an elementary school where they're using a shared iPad lab. And so sometimes students will grab the iPads and sign into their Seesaw class, and the iPad is already signed into somebody else's class, but sometimes they just don't notice that and they start trying to post into the wrong class. So I think it's really smart that she added her picture here. So when I close out of this, you see in her class, I'm going to be able to tell right away because her pretty little face is right there. And that's going to be really helpful, I think, for students to be able to track and know that they're in the right class. You can also change colors. So if you are using a shared lab, or if, you know, students are maybe in your class for music and this class kindergarten or whatever, changing those colors just to differentiate a little bit for your sake and for the kids' sake, I think is really smart. The sign-in mode is really important as well. It will default to this class code shared devices, and the class code means it's going to generate a QR code. Kids scan this from the iPad, or they could scan it from the webcam on the computer or Chromebook. It really does make logging in so simple. You just print out the QR code and they scan it and they're in. So the QR code is really nice. This one-to-one devices also uses the QR code. but it's a little bit different. The class we just posted to for Nikki was set up as a shared device class. When I do a one-to-one device class, as soon as I scan the QR code, I have to choose my name off the list, and then I'm just signed in as myself. That can be super helpful. Sometimes kids will get to the end and they'll choose on accident or on purpose a name that's not their own, or sometimes they accidentally click multiple names, and so when they post it to their journals, they post it to 3 or 4 different student journals. So I think having them just sign in as themselves sometimes cuts down on them accidentally choosing other kids' names. The other piece that I really like about this is in the new activities, that differentiation that we talked about only really works if you're assigned in as one-to-one devices. If I just want to send Chris and Nikki an assignment in activities and I choose Chris and Nikki's name, if you're signed in one-to-one, only Chris and Nikki will see it. If you're signed in shared devices, everyone is still going to see it because the device doesn't know which student you are, if that makes sense. So I really prefer using this one-to-one device and then just teaching kids to log out whether you have one-to-one devices or not. For older students who are pretty comfortable using their email address or Google account, you can actually just give them a class code to join and they can sign in using their email address. And then it would be connected to their Google Drive for that integration. We talked a little bit already about what's in the managed students. Nikki kind of touched on this. She said she had a teacher that had disabled the student likes because she didn't like all the notifications. Another thing I can turn off is my kids' ability to comment. This is on by default, and sometimes if we haven't taught them yet how to make good comments, this can get a little bit out of hand. So I really like turning this piece off until I've had time to model and show students how to make good comments. And then I turn this back on, and then they're able to look at one another's posts and comment, which is pretty powerful. Same here. They can automatically see one another's work. New items automatically require approval. So Nikki was showing you as you were posting, you were seeing how she had that red line across the bottom, just showing her that she had work to approve. All of those things are on by default. Enable item editing is pretty important if you want your kids to be able to, once they post, open it up again and make changes to it. So I always go in and turn this on because it's not on by default. And oftentimes I want to be able to give them feedback and then let them open up that post and edit it and then make those changes to it. So I think this is an important one to have on. The family access, once you turn it on, this is how you invite your families. So when I click here, I'm going to print these invitations, and it's just going to give me a different QR code for each of my students that they would take home to their parents with instructions. It's going to tell them how to log into Seesaw and connect to the right class. So this is really slick. I've had a lot of teachers have luck if you can hand these out like at parent-teacher conferences or open house or some kind of event where you see the parents in person and can hand it to them and explain it to them. That seems to work really well. And then again, you have the folders down here, which we touched on very briefly, but here's where you could create your folders if you want to be able to organize and post into folders. It's going to automatically let teachers put things into folders. If you want your students to see the folders, like we saw the folders in Nikki's class, if you want them to be able to do that, you do have to turn that part on. So there's just lots of stuff kind of hidden in here. So if you're ever kind of curious, can I do this or how do I do this? This would be the first place to click and kind of just look around and see if that's available in your settings. This other piece is probably one that we could do a whole other webinar on, but there's this brand new addition to Seesaw called Activities. And I just put a link in here because I knew we really wouldn't have a lot of time to talk about this. But if you click this link, hopefully none of my links have been going to the right spot. It takes you to the Seesaw Help Center, and it gives you a little overview of what this activities piece means, how you can use it with your students, and kind of how it works. So if this is something you want to dig into a little bit, there's some information there. Let's see, is it your turn?
I think so.
Okay.
So obviously with a tool like this, there are more ideas than we could share in a 1-hour webinar. So we want to give you some places that you can go to find other ideas and other inspiration. The Seesaw website is rich with teaching ideas and visuals and things you can print, testimony from other teachers who are using this, as well as more webinars about using Seesaw and what the PD and your PJs. I just love because they're having like 2 and 3 webinars a week, sometimes more, about different topics, and you have a choice between an hour-long webinar or one that they call a sprint, which is just a 10-minute real quick overview of a feature, and sometimes that's a little bit more palatable for your schedule. So these are places to start. Ideas.seesaw.me or help.seesaw.me or PD and your PJs are all great places to go for more ideas and more inspiration. My teachers, I have a Pinterest board too, and I can share that at the end with everybody that I post things up there on a regular basis. These 2 places, and again, we're going to send you these links in this slide deck, but this first one is a nice Google slide deck with an activity on each slide deck, on each slide, and it gives you a lesson, like a mini lesson plan, and then an image of that activity. And then 100 ways to use Seesaw is just a really quick list of all the different things you could use this tool for if you're drawing a blank. And really this is just meant for you to look at your classroom and the way things run and the things you're already doing and find a place for Seesaw to fit. And a lot of the things on these lists are things you're probably already doing, and Seesaw just gives you an opportunity to document it and share it with somebody outside of your classroom. It also works on Chromebooks, yay! This is a wonderful thing for at one of the schools I work with. That's what they're using it on, is Chromebooks. And so while I think it started out as something that was just an iPad app, the fact that they've expanded to the use on laptops and Chromebooks is really great. This slide deck here, I'm going to click on it here, is an awesome one, and we'll send you the link. The first thing you want to know about having it on a Chromebook is that, first of all, you can download it as an extension for Chrome, and then it will appear in the toolbar of the Chromebook. So as soon as students open it up, they'll see the little icon down in the tool things, so they don't have to type anything in, which would have been nice this morning because I was working with some kinders and I had to just go around and type it into all of theirs just in the interest of time. But there's some great tips in this slide deck for using this with Chromebooks, and the one that I think is great is taking pictures using the webcam on the Chromebook can be the hardest part, and so they really recommend putting the picture on a clipboard so that it's solid and sturdy and it's not going to have like the shadows. And they even talk about training your kids to have the tilt of the laptop at the right angle and to think about light so that when you're taking those pictures you get the best quality of pictures. So it certainly is possible, and you can see these kids here kind of just changing and manipulating their work so they can still hold it up in front of that webcam. So it definitely is doable. And then this little feature that Tracy taught me today is that any post that your kids put on Seesaw, you can make into these sweet little QR codes that has the image in the middle. And then you could print these off or email them to somebody. And I see this as an opportunity for grandma and grandpa if you want them to see a post. So how this works is if I come back to my messy class, or I read the word messy. If I come back to my class and this is something that I'd like someone else to see, 3 little dots down in the corner. What was it? 3 dots will take you to a lot. I can't remember the little rhyme. But if you come over here, one of these things is Get Item QR Code. So you click on Get Item QR Code, and it creates this code with the image of what this is in the middle. You can download this or print it. So then you could put this on the bulletin board outside of your room. You could put this, just tape it onto a student's piece of work. You could just send it home for anybody else to scan. And then they would get to see just that post when they scanned that code, which is a really cool feature. Like I said, I just learned about that today. It's really fun. Where are we? So back to the Chromebook one. And with one more thing in here I was going to share from the Chromebooks. I can't remember it. Oh, just talking about the draw tool on Chromebooks is really tricky because they have to use the trackpad. And I was working with kinders this morning, and that was definitely challenging. So if you had an external mouse that you could hook up to the Chromebook, that would be great. Or just good old practice and perseverance to figure it out. But making dots is super easy, and that's what they were having a lot more success with. And so sort of capitalizing on that is to use those dots for a math lesson or things like that. So I highly recommend diving into this slide deck, and we'll send that to you when this is all over. Where am I? Here we go. No, completely lost our slides now, Tracy. I'm gonna stop sharing and let you take over for a minute so I can figure out where my slides are.
Okay. Okay, so I think, okay, so we're here, Seesaw and Google Suite. So just real quickly, we already touched a tiny bit on that new Google Drive integration. So you can pull in anything that the kids are making in the Google Drive. They can pull it right into Seesaw. And I don't know, here in Billings anyway, when students create things in their Google accounts, they can only share with people who are in our domain. So even if they make something, you know, a really awesome Google Doc or Google Drawing, they can't just share that with their parents because their parents won't have access to view it because they're not in our Billings schools domain. So this, I think, can be really awesome as far as, you know, you're still using the Google tools to create, but then this is the place where you're sharing with parents and with classmates. So this is, again, just another slide deck. Both of these were grabbed from those PD in Your PJs sessions, which are awesome. And so you'll just have this link if this is something, if you do work with students where you're already using Google Drive, this would be a really helpful resource just to see how some teachers are using it with their students and pairing it with Seesaw, because it does work really, really well. And I think we're just to our Q&A. That was a ton of information covered quickly. Hopefully you'll have, you know, some time to look at these links. It really is such an easy tool, just creating your own, you know, free account and just playing around a little bit. You know, letting your students, I think what really drew me to it at first was just honestly how easy it is for even kindergartners to pick it up. And it has all those visual cues, like Nikki said, where even non-readers can really quickly figure out how to use those tools and be able to share. So don't be intimidated. Your kids will figure it out very quickly because it is such a simple, easy tool.
So do either of you have any questions? We've kind of whittled down to just two of you now. Do either of you have any questions for us that we can answer real quick before we wrap up? Okay, great.
Oh, there is a little Google form at the end here. Did you want to talk about that, Nikki?
Yeah, so we're going to share this deck with you. And then if you go to this last slide, you can click on this form, and this is how we will send you the OPI renewal units. And so if you fill that out, and then I will email you a copy of the OPI unit. And so this is just a real quick evaluation of our time. And so expect a couple of emails from me in the next 20 minutes or so with the slide deck and with this Google form. And then you can give us some feedback, and we'll make sure that you get your renewal units. So Tracy and I both thank you so much for giving up your time after school, and we really appreciate it. We will have this archived and recorded. I'll put it on a YouTube channel, and you can watch it later or you can share it with colleagues. We hope it was useful, and we really appreciate it. And yay for our first webinar.
Yay! Thanks, Nikki.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We appreciate it. We'll stick around for just a little bit if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a great night. All right, we did it.
This is awkward.
I should probably stop the recording.